Welcome to the Lovecars on the Grid podcast, your global motorsport roundup with me, Tiff, Needell and Paul Woodman.
Welcome to Lovecars on the Grid, your global motorsport podcast roundup. There's quite a lot going on, actually, Tiff. It's quite exciting. It's getting super exciting because the Formula One season is not far away. But there's plenty to look at today, including the Formula One cars. They've all revealed their liveries. They've all been on the catwalk, showing off, modelling their new look for 2023. FIA, a little bit of controversy with them, as every week it seems to be. NASCAR, of course. The single-seater series comes to a bit of a conclusion. So yeah, there's lots to talk about. Should we kick off with this Formula One catwalk, because every single manufacturer has now showed their cards, and there is a common theme. Do you know what that common theme is?
Black, maybe.
Yes, there's lots of black going on, and do you know why there's lots of black going on?
Well, it's an obsessive weight saving. I mean, the trouble is, even if they can make the cars down to the weight limit, they still want to be under it so they can put extra weight to the front or the back. So they actually like to be below the weight limit. They can then bolster it up. So they're just becoming obsessed. So half the cars seem to be just carbon fibre. You can colour carbon fibre. I wonder if coloured carbon fibre is probably more heavy than the Kevlar special mixes they have. But I'm sure they've got the lightest carbon fibre. Yes, they're all black. And of course, in a way, with Mercedes, it's quite apt in a way, because they were saving weight back in the 1930s to become the Silver Arrows when they took all the white paint off, because they actually had a maximum weight limit back then of 750 kilograms. So you actually had to be under a certain weight instead of above it.
Isn't that funny? Amazing.
They discovered they were just over it, so they peeled all the white paint off their Mercedes and appeared for the race the next day silver, and then they became the Silver Arrows. Well, that's the lovely folklore story. But of course, there are people out there, if you look on the internet, there'll be geeks out there who say, oh, no, actually, it was already... And maybe that wasn't the real story. Maybe they were Silver Arrows before they took the paint off or after they took the paint off. But I don't care
if they were or not. I prefer your story. Your story is a very good one. And in terms of coloured carbon fibre, you can indeed, Pagani are pioneers of that. But you can't get really bright colours with coloured carbon fibre unless that's changed as well. But certainly back in the past, if you wanted a purple, for example, it was always quite a deep purple. You could never get that bright, those sort of luminous colours that you see a lot of. Yeah, Deep Purple, very good band. Favorite car, favorite and worst car, because we haven't got.
We'll go through it.
Okay.
Well, I was looking at them because whenever I look at car cars, it annoys me. I think they should get together. The FIA, if we do something, it should be in championship order. You have the pick of your main colour, so you sort of go down the grid. It's like when the cars are coming straight at you is when I was trying to tell which is which, and now that's becoming harder and harder.
Of course,
because we will look at two in particular. We'll start with the Haas and the AlphaTauri. So they've now both got white central colours with black wings. So look very similar, except...
Well, hang on, no, they haven't got black wings.
Sorry, red wings. Red wings. They both got red wings. But the AlphaTauri's got a black front nose. But again, we're looking straight at it. It'd be very hard to tell a Haas from an AlphaTauri. So they're a problem.
I don't think so, because that red front... So for those of you who haven't seen it, the AlphaTauri's got a big black front wing, diffuser, whatever you want to call it. But the Haas is quite, I think, it really stands out with that red front. They're completely different. I don't know what you're talking about, actually.
Red rear wings. They both got red rear wings, which is a bit... Yeah. I mean, in a traffic jam, you don't see the front wings as easy as the rear wings and the main bodywork.
Yep.
And then worst of all, perhaps, is the Ferrari and the Alfa Romeo. I mean,
they look nothing like. No, now you are on Cloud Cuckoo Land, because they look nothing like.
I am talking coming down to the first corner head on. They both got red central, black rear wings, black front wings.
Okay, viewers and listeners, if you haven't seen this already, the Alfa Romeo has this beautiful red stripe down the centre. Everything else is black on the car, and the Ferrari, guess what, is all red. So it's completely different. If you
not looking at the front, looking at the front,
like you, are we?
But then when they come down to the first corner, that's when I can't see them.
It's got a black rear wing and a black front wing, and it's got black red on the side. Okay, all right. Well, we'll see about that, shall we? And plus,
I know what you mean.
And plus, the Ferrari is famous for having very minimalistic logos and sponsors. It's got very classy, whereas the Alfa Romeo has got logos plastered every single inch of the car.
Yeah. All
So
right,
I think,
I'll give you that. I mean, I'll give you the Ferrari. Which looks better than the Ferrari or the Alfa?
oh, that Alfa Romeo looks sensational.
Okay.
Oh, it looks great.
Good. So
thinking,
the cat.
what about you? What about you? Alfa or Ferrari?
I prefer the Ferrari. I like the black and red on the sides. A bit more. Red Bull bit disappointing. Just to say, pretty much same. Couldn't see much difference.
I say boring. It's a great livery. It's a fantastic livery, but it's old now, isn't it? It's just boring.
Yeah. The disappointments, I thought the Aston Martin, no change really. The green,
I think Aston
darker.
Yeah, but that's cool. That's a colour. I think it's a funky looking car. I've got to say, JCB.
It's quite a black green. I'd point out quite a black green. So when you look at the black wings front and rear. And the biggest disappointment, though, because there we are, Williams. Williams have got Gulf sponsorship this year. Gosh, Williams is going to look great in those magnificent pale blue and orange colours. Going to be fun. And it's dark blue with black wings.
Golf. I don't think there's a single Golf logo on that car.
There's got a logo in the middle of the nose and a tiny one towards the back wheels.
Okay.
So that was a big disappointment.
And I didn't realise Williams. Something I only just noticed. Again, viewers and listeners, if you haven't seen it, have a look. But and people will be shouting at their screens or their headphones. But the Williams has always had this Duracell battery on the air intake above the driver. I never noticed that until this year. So
nor did I. Don't tell Duracell. Don't tell Duracell. That was a waste of time.
Absolutely. So McLaren, what do you think of that one? There's a lot going on with the McLaren car. So it's black. Now the primary color is black. Still has the famous McLaren orange. There's a lot going on.
It's my winner. That is the winner of my catwalk. I mean, again, looking straight at it, you hardly see any black because you've got a magnificent orange or papaya rear wing. You've got orange top of the cockpit. It looks stunning. And around the sides, you've got blue, haven't you? And bits of blue and black. And I think that's fantastic.
See, I think
it looks like a racing car.
It does look a racing car, but surely that new Mercedes is just spectacular. You'd be a brave man to bet against that, or woman, or whatever.
Just black. It's just black.
It's got
turquoise stripes. It's got the turquoisey blue. Is that turquoise there? Blue? What colour would you call it? We've got little stripes.
Yeah, it's more green. It's the Petronas colour. So Petronas, the oil company, it's their colour for their logo.
The Marmite one must surely be, and it definitely stands out in the crowd, is the Alpine. The blue top, the pink BWT, pink wings. I mean, that will certainly, you'll see that one when it comes down to the first corner. Do you like that? That was a bit too pink and blue for you.
That's my loser, actually. So Red Bull will be my loser because Red Bull have done nothing it's just the same old. But Red Bull will be 9th and the Alpine will be 10th on my wish list, on my not so wish list. How about you?
When I got Williams down the bottom for disappointing,
that's just because you're so disappointed not to get the Golf livery.
No, it's just a dark blue. It's like Aston Martin are a very black green, and Williams are a very, very black blue. So they almost look black. So much. It's like touring cars. They should get together. Alan Gow, who usually is very good at promoting his sport, I think last year we had about 6 or 7 or 8 black cars, and all coming down to the first corner together. That's why I say team championship order. You get the first pick of your main colour, and it's
It was a bit like that with the Caterham racing, wasn't it? The black. There were sort of 2 or 3 primary liveries that people went for.
Yeah.
But Iskin ISK designs Iskin. Or if you want your car designed, any car, not just Caterham, he's your man. So hit me up if you need his details.
Where's McLaren in your list then? That's way out top for me. I think that's just stunning looking. It's got to be up in your top 3, hasn't it?
It is top 3. So for me, be Mercedes. Then I would go with you. Oh no, no. Alfa Romeo. Alfa Romeo is stunning.
Oh yeah, you said
absolutely.
Alfa Romeo.
Alfa, McLaren, Mercedes. And that's it. That's my top 3.
Your top
Not
3.
in that order particularly, but that is my top 3. And your top 3, just for confirmation, please?
I was going to be McLaren, Alpine, just because they're going to stand out in the crowd. And my third, I don't know who I put third, probably the Ferrari.
Oh, so boring. I've just slagged off Red Bull for being the same. Ferrari been the same for generations.
Ferraris have to be red. Nobody else should be allowed red. I suppose Alfa Romeo historically were red as well, but Ferraris have to be red. They have the stamp of red authority. That's it.
Okay. Tiff says they've got to be red, so they've got to be red.
Anyway, they're all out on track. Maybe they look better or worse when they're on track on what Thursday? Yeah, Thursday, I think. Or was it Friday? I've got it written down somewhere.
Yeah.
Thursday, Friday, Saturday. They'll be on the track. Hopefully we get some film of it. I was intrigued. I should look at a slight look ahead, not a big in-depth one maybe, but I was quite surprised. I added it up this morning. It's obvious, but there's 6 new driver pairings. All those turnarounds of seats quite surprised me. I thought it was only 4, and then I looked around. Well, it's 5, and then well, it's 6. So, how do you think? I shall quiz you now. The new lineups. Do you think Fernando Alonso will be quicker than Lance Stroll? Start with a tricky one.
Let me think about that one. Yes, but Lance Stroll, we've said it many times. He's actually he's turned out to be a very, very good driver. But of course, Alonso's going to he'll be better.
Another easy one, maybe Alexander Albon against the good American rookie Logan Sargent.
Yep, Albon. No question.
Now we get to the tricky ones. Now, all tricky, really. How about Kevin Magnussen against Nico Hülkenberg?
Hang on. Whoa. Let's go back. We want to get the not so tricky ones out the way first. Surely we go Red Bull next.
There aren't any more. No, new. They're not new. They're not a new pair.
Oh, new. Okay.
New.
Yeah, okay.
Do listen. This quiz, I said 6, not the whole flipping field. I'm just talking about the new ones. So now the trigger. Kevin Magnussen against Nico Hülkenberg.
Oh, that is tricky.
Oh, no. I know.
I am so on the fence. I'll let you answer this one.
I'm going Kevin.
Yeah. Well, I'll go.
He's been in the car for a couple of years, and he's a bit young, but he's a bit more on it all the time. Whereas I think Nico might not. Nick de Vries going up against Yuki Tsunoda.
Nick de Vries, no question. Yuki's been there for many, many years, and he's much more experienced. But Nick de Vries has got the pace. We know that.
Yeah. I agree with you. I think you're right. Well, then maybe that'll be the closest one of not being obvious. And then finally, perhaps the most interesting one is Esteban Ocon against Pierre Gasly. These Frenchmen that hated each other for some reason from several years ago. Will Gasly upset Ocon?
I don't know whether it's because they're French. I don't really want to either. But as a person, I slightly prefer Gasly. So I'm going to go Gasly.
Okay.
And you?
This is not the last one. It's not the last one. I think Gasly. I'm a big Gasly fan. I think he's
he's good driver.
He's had a bad car for a few years, and he had he obviously went to get Verstappen. He had the promotion too quickly, maybe to Red Bull, and he got kicked out too quickly. I think by Red Bull.
He did.
Like
they didn't give him a
Albon.
chance. Yeah.
No. I forgot Lando. How good do you think Oscar Piastri is going to be?
Wait. Just on that Ocon thing, I don't know. There's something about him, and you wouldn't rely on him if push came to shove. He's out there for himself. Nobody else but himself.
Well, with Fernando, he didn't hold back against Fernando, did he? Even though Fernando was sort of the senior member of the team, talent-wise. But
one prediction I will have is that there will be at least one coming together between those two this year.
Well, don't remember him. It was him and who were in the Pink Panthers? Him and Sainz. No, who was Ocon continually crashing against? Oh gosh. In the Pink Panthers, that Carlos Sainz. Was it? I think it was.
No, I don't know. We should both know this off the top of our head.
Oh, it was about 4 years ago. That's a long time for me to remember. But he was permanently. No, it was Sergio. It was Sergio Perez.
Perez, of course.
And they were just hitting each other on every flipping race. So anyway, we all look forward to that. It's now warming up. I should get.
And it will never be either of their faults, by the way. It certainly won't be Ocon's fault. Yeah. Okay.
So let's get back to
pairing.
That's it. That was it. That was Lando over Piastri, but I can't see Piastri. He'll get close, but I can't see him upsetting Lando, to be honest.
No way. Lando is quality.
Maybe towards the end of the year. I mean, Oscar hasn't raced anything for a year. It's so hard. These kids did all this simulating stuff, but there's nothing quite like actually being in a car.
I like that. That's a good little quiz. Well done.
Moving on to
Go on.
Sorry, Lewis. What?
No. I was going to say my prediction. My only thought last year was Lewis George that Lewis would beat George, and I was wrong with that as well. So I was wrong with all of them, to be honest. So come on, carry on.
Yeah, just the rules. The FIA, has weekly bulletins to embarrass the FIA. They've finally now come out after saying that we're going to gag everyone for any political views. And then Dominicali from the Formula One drivers said they can say whatever they want to. They've now written a rule. This is what the FIA do. You remember last week we talked about the regulations for changing the weight from 798 to 796, not 795. Anyway, they have now written Article 12.2.1n, small n, of the ISC, which I think is the International Sporting Code. You are free to express your beliefs outside of the ring, but not in specific times, like on the track, on the podium, or in the driver's press boxes. And anything you want to do in those times, you have to seek permission on issues 4 weeks before the race. You have to put in your written application for what you want to say or have written on your clothing. So it includes, like, for example, the rainbow helmet, right? What's his name? Hamilton's rainbow helmet. Yep. So that he'd have to write that in 4 weeks before the event to say,
wow.
Oh no. Yes.
Wow. So what happens? God forbid, there's sure to be some sort of death this year. Somebody over the years been associated with Formula One. What happens then? Because they often have tribute helmets.
Yeah, tribute helmets. I know. I don't know what's been.
Oh, crikey! It's gone a bit crazy, hasn't it? Like a naughty little schoolboy, you turn up with the wrong clothes, the wrong name.
Rule book gets bigger and bigger and bigger. It's like we're talking about UK motorsport. There's track limits. With 1 inch off of. Oh gosh, rules.
Well, let's go to some proper racing, shall we?
NASCAR.
Did you
it wasn't the
night?
best. I did indeed. Stayed up until 12:30 this morning. Because I've been trying to get everyone to watch. It wasn't the best Indy 500, Daytona 500. We went over half the race with just no incidents. They weren't even going 3 wide. The trouble is, it's a bit like Formula One and everywhere. Cars are too reliable now. Drivers are too experienced. You don't get any wild children in the events. So everybody's settled in.
There's nothing really in between. Nothing between them really, is there? I mean, of course you get slightly better, but.
And there were people moving up through the field, even though the front runners just all stayed too wide for about 2 hours. Jimmy Johnson's one of the good stories because he's doing a one-off race. And, of course, he's racing that NASCAR at Le Mans in June and he's fully retired. But he came out from 39th, got up to the top 6. So there were people working up through the thing that you could see going on. But it only really kicked off, as I said, there was this one crash just before the end of the second stage, which, again, because you know that they're so close to disaster, even though it's boring for 2 hours, that they're all doing 200 miles an hour, just nudging and pushing. And you know that one slightly bad nudge, and you've got this huge crash. And that's what happened before the end of the second stage. I forget who was pushing. Tyler Reddick got pushed in turn for the corner and couldn't hold on to it, whammed the wall and took out Chase Elliott, one of the other stars. And then the race went all back on. It looked like it was going to be a Ford. There was a Ford, but it's so frustrating, I think, for some people. Because Brad Keselowski has now got his own team for Fords, and his teammate, Chris Buescher. They were working together at the front 2. 6 laps to go, the Daytona 500. This is it. The team's going to have a 1-2. And then I think it was Daniel Suarez spun on his own. So, of course, the yellows come out. Then you're down to 4 laps to go, and there's the green-white checkers coming up and the restarts. And the restarts all get crazy.
What makes the restarts crazy?
Well, because everybody's all, they're all back right together and there's accelerating from zero. So there's a lot of pushing. And if you don't get pushed, you go backwards quickly. There was a wreck quite soon. 4 laps to go, there was a wreck that took out about another 10 cars. And then,
how do they restart in NASCAR? So we know Formula One or most racing that we're familiar with, safety car, or they don't call it safety car, they call it a
pace car.
Pace car. So that comes off, and then who sets the pace then? Into what corner? Is it
the leader? So the leader. But also then they've got this new thing where now on the lap before the restart, you choose which side you start. So you choose a lane now, which is quite interesting because tactically, you'll have your teammate will choose to go behind you for the restart. Because the big thing on a restart is getting a push from the word go. You want someone on your bumper pushing you. And it was, I don't know which crash, I think it was just before that crash that Kyle Larson,
number 5,
had come right to the front. And he'd got behind, who was it? Ricky Stenhouse. And he pushed him really well to the front, and then the yellows came out, so that ruined it. Just when I thought it was going to be the last lap, so I thought, right, Kyle's tactic is to push Stenhouse, get the 1-2, then come around turn 4, out the slipstream, side draft, and win the race. But behind them was this big crash that wiped it all out. And then some had to then stop for fuel because someone had low on fuel. That was another aspect that was building up all the tension. So then the next reset, in fact, before that crash, who was it? The Chevrolets had come past. Who were the two Chevrolets coming through? Kyle Petty, not Kyle Petty, the other Kyle. Oh, Kyle Busch, that's right, left a Chevy charge. So they were all in pairs, Fords, pairs, Chevy pairs. This next crash left them all on their own. They all lost their partners in the pit stops and reshuffles. But Larson tried to get by Stenhouse, but got left. Because if you notice 2 lanes all the time, going faster. And when you pull out to overtake, you have to have someone to go with you. But Logano had no Chevy teammates near him, so nobody went with him. He's in the middle now. And he just dropped backwards, like the 2 lanes each side. And as he dropped backwards, it caused people to back up, and someone into the back of Travis Pastrana. It was another fantastic story to tell him. Anyway, Pastrana got put sideways, hit Carl Larson in the wall, chaos, Larson out, more crashes. Pastrana, doing a one-off. He's this stunt driver, rally driver, a superhero on the Ken Block style character. Such you know his name, and so many other people do. And he just loves, he gets so excited. One of his best, if you go for crashing in Pastrana, he rolled a Subaru in a rally about 20 years ago, one of his earliest things. He had an open face helmet. On the outside, it rolled about 10 times, real height. And he's going, wow, man. And when it stopped, he said, hey, man, wow, what a ride, man, what a ride, Anyway.
That reminds me, I know you're digressing, I'm digressing as well, but it reminds me of Steve, who is a guy, the very famous auto journalist in the UK, good driver. I was at Brands Hatch with him. Steve, very good driver. He was please help me out. You must remember this name. Not Steve Copley.
This is me that forgets names at my age, not you.
Oh my goodness. Sutcliffe, of course.
Oh, Sutcliffe, yes. Yeah. Very good driver.
It reminds me of him when he was in a Jag with Formula 1 driver, and they were doing a lap, and the Formula 1 driver, I can't remember who it was, Italian guy, was braking so late. He rolled the car, and Steve Sutty saw it coming, and he was so calm the whole way. It was all recorded.
That was the Brazilian.
It was
driver.
Brazilian, and he was so calm. I've never seen anyone so calm after a crash. He just said, "We're not going to make this corner." And and he was so right, and he rolled the car, and he said, "Are you okay?" Yeah, okay. Sorry, Tiff. Back to NASCAR.
Anyway, back to the last lap now. So Travis was about to get a top 5 finish or top 6. They would have made from 40th on the grid. But then at the end, Ricky Stenhouse. So when that crash went was when they were on. They'd just taken the white flag when that next crash happened. So then the yellows go out. And unfortunately, for the last half lap, they weren't racing. The yellows go on. The positions are frozen. They go back and look at all the evidence as to who was leading when the yellows went on. And it was Ricky Stenhouse in his Chevrolet up from 31st on the grid. But this is the thing about NASCAR. You can come from nowhere. Joe Logano second in his Ford and Christopher Bell third for Toyota. But I'm going to cough. How do I cover my microphone? I need to cough. How bad was that? No, was all right.
I've muted you. Do you know what? That's a bit of peace and quiet. Actually, you're muted now. That's really good. And it was Italian. It was Antonio Pizzonia. Hang on, now I can't unmute you. I'm sorry, listeners. I can't unmute.
I unmuted myself. I've unmuted.
It
wasn't the most exciting Daytona. It wasn't the most exciting Daytona 500, but as always, the end's exciting. But there wasn't enough really going on in the build-up to make it that exciting. It's always quite fun. The pit stops are good because the Fords all gang up to go off at the same time. Because then when they leave the pits, they get back up to speed in a pack. And the same with Chevrolet. So it was quite fun watching that when they came to the pit stops.
So they do that even if they're not in the same team?
Yeah, as long as it's Chevrolet, the manufacturers. So there's most of Chevrolet, and there's only about 9 Toyotas, and then about 20 Fords and 20 things. But they're trying to gang. The trouble is, when it's going 2 by 2, which it was for all the early sections, you can't get left. You've got to somehow get yourself into the lower lane. You can't pit if you're in the high lane. So some manufacturers, they got left in the high lane, had to pit with the Fords when they were a Chevrolet, had to pit with the Toyotas. So it was quite a spectacle when you see, 15 cars all peeling off at the same time. So that's when there's no yellow flags, so you can't pit under green on your own because you never pick up the slipstream again. So they have to plan that everyone pits together. So then you come out as a pack so you can get yourselves back up to speed. There's a lot to it, a lot of strategy in NASCAR, which makes it complicated. But it's now every week. It's NASCAR to watch. So it's that's other race. Other race in other news.
Single seater.
The Middle East championships, the young people's championships, finished at Yas Marina. The Formula 4 UAE championship was a building up, as we said last week. There were about 3 drivers that could win it. It was actually won in a last race crash, but it was actually the Aussie James Wharton, one of the Ferrari Academy boys. He's taken the championship. He won the first 2 races. And then his only really challenger by then was that Finnish kid, both another Ferrari Academy, Tuukka Taponen. And he had 2 second places, but the gap was quite big by then. I think Wharton was going to win, but they went off together on the first lap. A lot of this I saw, a lot of the racing. There was these circuits. I mean, so many drivers just shooting off, not lifting the throttle, coming back in. Anyway, these 2 clashed, trying to get back on the track. They both ran wide, and they both tripped each other up. I don't know who was to blame, but they're both out of the spot. So Wharton won the championship. Yuga Chukwu won the final race to finish 3rd in the championship. The best Brits were Arvid Lindblad in 5th and young Will McIntyre in 14th. Quite a rookie, Will, so he did really well. So that was the Formula 4s. The Formula Regional Middle East, as we knew pretty much last week, Andrea Kimi Antonelli, the Mercedes protege, wrapped up the title quite easily. But the Briton, Taylor Barnard, came through to 2nd in the championship. He's a Nico Rosberg protege. So all good in the Middle East. That's all over. They'll now come back and do their various different championships all over the world. But they've all
any stars of the future there? Do you think you predict after watching that?
Well, yeah, those names. That's the point. That's really why I've been picking this up and talking about it, because these are the names. These are the kids that will probably be the most likely ones to get through. And it goes back to the the women. We brought this up before, that of the 82 young people in Middle East and down in New Zealand. Only about 10 of them, 80 were women, and none of them featured in the top 6, I don't think, of any championship. And it's until they do, we're not going to get a woman to be a Grand Prix driver. This is where you have to start. And in fact, even I was shocked, because this last weekend, I saw this advert for the WSK Supermasters karting series down in Italy. It was just one round. I don't know how many rounds they have in a year. And there were no fewer than 360 karters going karting last weekend to begin their career. This is where you have to begin, with your parents paying the money, or your Faber or your local builder. 360 of 4 different categories. And again, I looked through the whole list. I looked through the whole list of 360 names in the entry list. There were only, I reckon, a dozen names that were vaguely female. Well, I could be wrong. Some names were Italian and different translations. But I reckon of the 360 karters doing that Supermaster series, there's only about a dozen girls. They didn't feature anywhere in the top 5 of any of the championships. So until you see a female name winning that, that level, that's where you have to be if you want to be a Grand Prix driver in 6 years' time.
You're the wrong person to ask, so this is more a rhetorical question, but can a top driver come from sim racing only? And I know it's happened a couple of times before, but because karting is so expensive, any motor racing is, but will we see a top driver through sim racing again?
There'll always be struggling. They could be very naturally talented. There are some brilliant drivers that could well be as good as Ayrton Senna or Lewis Hamilton, but if you jump off the sim into a real car, you're still struggling to have that sort of seat time, that racing experience. And
it makes such a difference, doesn't it? It really
does.
Well,
yeah. So, there's been one. Who was the kid that won the very first PlayStation?
The Dutch guy, yeah.
Yeah. And he was the English guy with a Dutch name. What was his name? And he was really, really good, but just not quite good enough to get the grade. I mean, he had a Toyota sponsorship, I think it was, a Honda. And he got a long way. But yes, I'm certain.
You can't beat C-car time, and just that racecraft as well.
Yeah,
that you probably don't get with the sim racing. I don't know. Maybe you do, but maybe we'll get a female come from there. I don't. Who knows?
But they still got it. Where do they go? From sim? Where do they go? They go straight to Formula 4, UK, or anyway, 360 karters down in Italy.
with a very small percentage of females, which is a big shame. There's, of course, Vicky Piria, our own Vicky Piria. She started off in karting in Italy as well, but
Yeah.
W Series. That's it, really, for this week.
That's it. In fact, interesting thinking about the James Wharton, the Aussie kid I've just mentioned, that's now a Ferrari Academy driver. He actually left Australia when he was about 15, I think, and came to Europe and did that WSC Kart Master Series. I think he won one of the categories. I think he won the OK. So that was his ladder out of Australia. In the old days, he'd come from Australia to do Formula Ford or Formula 4, but he'd actually left Australia at age 15 or 14, I'm not quite sure, and did that WSK Supermasters and only did cars last year. It was his first year doing Formula 4 in Italy. And now he's out winning Formula 4. So it's those categories where you just win and win and win. They're the ones that get you into the Ferrari Academy and the Red Bull Academy and the Mercedes Academy. And he's certainly named for James Wharton, Tuukka Taponen, Hugo Yukachuku, and Kimi Antonelli and Taylor Barnard.
Very good. Very good pronunciation. Right, I've got a name for you, Dr. John Gaffin. What did you think of those photos I sent you of what's the best car that you've driven, sports car that you've driven? What is the best sports car of all time?
Porsche 956 962s. Although I've got a romantic feeling for my Lamborghini Countach Group C car, which I raced. I'm the only person to race it. Raced it once at Kyle Army. So
I never knew that. That's I got to read your book one day, haven't I? But so did you appreciate those lovely photos?
Yes, all memories. Wonderful.
Good. Yeah,
1989.
Really so if you're listening and thinking, what on earth is he going on about? So, second series of the TV show goes live pretty soon. I think in Japan in March, and then it will follow in different countries. And one of the items is Tiff goes back in time and drives a Group C Porsche. Well, you'll see for yourself, hopefully, wherever you are in the world, which is quite a nice one. We needed to get some footage of a few different cars. It's so hard to get these things, but John Gaffin came up trumps with a Porsche GB sponsored car, wasn't it, Tiff?
Yeah, Porsche Cars Great Britain with Derek Bell. Me and Derek Bell, World Championship 1989.
Lovely. Good stuff. Next week, so we're going to see a little bit of Formula 1 testing in Bahrain. I don't know, they're going to sandbag a little bit, hold their cards a little bit close to their chest, no doubt.
It never, so frustrating, those test days. What tyres you want, how much fuel. I mean, it's always, I still think you can get a general feeling, especially by who does the most laps. You know who's in a good place. They do lots of laps and, don't.
But you say that, but you can say that, you can look at it both ways, because if you're doing lots of laps, you haven't got it right, so you're worried, so you want to get more laps in as well. So it's because it works both ways. I think we'll see maybe who's porpoising the most, whose head's going up and down the most.
They shouldn't porpoise now. They've raised their skirts by 15 millimeters or something. The new regulations.
Will we see if that massive penalty for Red Bull last year will take any effect in the coming weeks with the lack of wind tunnel testing? No,
little bits count.
Formula E's head to South Africa, to Cape Town in South Africa.
Yeah, Cape Town. Interesting. I'll be watching. I don't know what sort of circuit it is, how silly tight it is. I imagine it's quite a silly tight if they'd built one somewhere. They always say city centre, don't they? It's never city centre. It's usually the Docklands or the
maybe around the waterfront or something.
Probably, Docklands. Yeah, the World Superbikes kicker. First bike championship begins down in Australia. A wonderful Phillip Island track. World Super. Maybe we'll say watch out. I think it's on all sorts of platforms, Eurosport, because it's in the middle of the night here. So on Saturday evening, check out where you can maybe record it or get up in the middle of the night. World Superbike's always great racing. Actually, fantastic. So now we've got top ranked Razgat Yugu and Jonathan Ray coming back to see if they can take the title back again off Alvaro Bautista. Lots of British riders. We already have Scott Redding out there. There is Jonathan Ray and Bradley Ray, who won the British Championship last year. He's just starting World Championship. So lots of British interest, World Superbikes. And then, of course, there's always NASCAR, Fontana, the 2 mile oval this weekend.
Where's Fontana? My American geography is actually good, but I don't know where Fontana
California.
is.
It's California.
Okay.
They don't run restrictor plates. Because one of the things about Daytona, it's a restrictor place race. So these bigger, wider, high bank, they actually take, instead of having 800 horsepower, they've only got 600 horsepower. They don't allow them to have the full engine. They have a little air restrictor. I think Fontana, actually, they don't have to have the air restrictor, so it should be more overtaking.
Good stuff. And finally, a little bit of homework for you and our viewers and listeners. do some homework and have a work out who's going to be winning the Formula One season this year. So we need some predictions.
How are we going to work that out?
Well, predictions then. Just a simple prediction. Finger in the air if you want. Get a dartboard and throw.
We'll be looking back. So after the 3 days testing, nothing really told us anything because nobody knew who was on what tires or who was wearing how much weight. And the worst thing with the tires is that the Pirelli tend to introduce those test tires, don't they? So there's a normal, soft, medium, hard, and then there's a test tire. And of course, there's 3 different medium compounds and 3 different soft compounds and 3 different. So you never really know. But
okay, and let's have a bet next week. We'll give our top 3 predictions, and the loser has to take the other one to the pub.
All right, who's going to set, regardless of weight, tires, anything, who is going to set the fastest time over the 3 days?
I'll tell you this. I know the answer already. Carlos Sainz. I know the answer. What's your
Ferrari
answer?
did quite well last. Ferrari were impressive. I think last year Ferrari were out front. I think Red Bull sandbagged. So were Mercedes.
Yeah. What's your answer then? I need
George Russell. George Russell.
Yeah, that's not a bad shout actually. Okay, so the loser of that,
Science.
Carlos or George, and the loser takes the other one to the pub. Deal. If I win, I don't just want a pint. I want pie chips as well.
You just said takes me to the pub. There was no element of buying at all. You said, I'll take you. Fine, I'll drop you off outside the door. Cheers, Paul. Cheers, everyone.
On that note, see you next week. Cheers, guys.
Bye.